We now have access to the tractor as of yesterday. Yesterday, I spent the majority of the day taking down all of this grass here that we have in our pasture. Now I went through pretty much all the fuel in the tractor, so I need to run to the gas station and get some diesel. But now I am ready to go, so let's get to it.
We're two hitchhikers. We met while hiking Mount Baldy with mutual friends, wasted no time, got engaged on a frozen alpine lake, got hitched, and have been adventuring together since. We're embarking on a new adventure of living big in a tiny home. Let's see how this goes.
Adventure awaits. Push it all this way.
Well, we just got back from driving up to Oregon to head to one of the big box stores to load up on some materials we need to get done what we need to get done this week. We have another raised garden bed to make, so we're going to be milling some wood today. And on top of that, we got some nice quality 4x8 lumber that we're going to be ripping down to finally be able to make a nicer looking office slash TV area. We've been making do with some wood crates, which has been working great, but it just doesn't look complete. So we're excited to be able to, focus on that today. So we just picked up Ruben's work truck because that is what has all of his tools, and we are almost home. So let's see what we get done today.
Now we get to do that 6 more times.
This is a bit slow going for us because we're finding that we actually need a medium-sized blade for this particular job. Now we have a smaller blade for our smaller chainsaw, and then we have this larger one for bigger jobs. But Ruben is finding that he's having to work extra hard because this chainsaw is so long, it's having to make bigger cycles and therefore dulling the blade out and giving us very rough cuts.
Yeah, the blade is so dull. Look at that. Imagine if I had to drag a hose from the other side of the property. How heavy is that?
Heavy.
That's what this chainsaw is doing. And the blade is getting dull from this. So this is terrible.
Our neighbors came over to give us a hand and help Ruben to make some adjustments, which made this cutting a little bit easier, as you can see here. Then they helped us load it all back to the casita. The sense of community here is just amazing. We started to frame up this garden bed, but then our other neighbors actually called us over because they needed some help. So when you live in a tight community, you answer the call. It did put this project on hold, but that's okay.
Well, we now have access to the tractor as of yesterday. So yesterday I spent the majority of the day getting started on taking down all of this grass here that we have in our pasture. It just seemed to blow up overnight. It was beautiful and green, and suddenly it was knee-high. And of course, fire mitigation is important. So that's why we need to get it all cut down. So this is what I got done yesterday. So we have some of our wheat growing in here. You can see it's hard winter red there. And this is what I got done yesterday. Now I need to get as much done as I can with most of the rest of the pasture. If I can get it all done today, that would be awesome, but I am not sure. But before I get going doing that, I need to go through and find all of the risers like that one right there and mark it, put those fence posts back up because they got knocked over in the wind. And it was pretty stressful yesterday trying to avoid hitting those. Now they're kind of in a bit of a grid and we know where they are, but kind of doesn't help when you actually hit a riser. So I'm gonna go through this morning and get those all standing up tall and be on the lookout for any random rocks, which we shouldn't have, but I still want to make sure because we don't want to damage those blades on the tractor. And yeah, then it's tractor time for me today. Stay. See, it's like a Where's Waldo thing because the grid is obvious until it's not. Because, so I have a riser over there. You can see it with that green patch. I have a riser over there. I don't know if you can even see it with my glove. I have a riser there. And I have a riser way over there in the distance. There should be one around here. And I'm doing a lot of this, trying to find it. So I go to these big tufts like this one over here. Maybe that's one. Nada. Nada, nada, limonada. See, and it's hard because the deer come through here and lay down, so you think that there's going to be a riser in there. It's very deceiving. There's got to be. Ah, here it is. Ha. And last year I went through and sledgehammered these all in, but our ground is just so tough in some spot that it doesn't stay up. Some spots. Stay. I just need you to stay for the morning. There we go. Stay. See, so as I'm coming through with the tractor, that tells me there's a riser there. All right, I've got that white fence post there. I found another one, put it over there. There's a riser there, so there's gotta be one in this area here. These should be a clue. Yeah, there we go. You know, this one I would never see because it's so far down. It's like ground level. And for me to run over that, ooh, that would be bad. Case in point, why are you here? We're in the middle of the pasture. I just happened to kick this rock. I don't know why it's here.
Now, the only rocks in the pasture are the ones holding up the fence posts by the risers. Why this one is elsewhere, I don't know. But if this were to actually be hit by the tractor, the damage it would do to the blades.
So I was feeling kind of bad that I was noticing the deer bedding down in a lot of the pasture area, which of course I'm cutting down, but they're also using this area underneath the solar panels. So we'll leave that to them for a little bit. I'll get to that later with the weed whacker. All right, hopefully this makes sense. We have sort of a grid. You see this one and then you see a few more going down the row. It's not quite straight, so I think I have them all marked. Now I went through pretty much all the fuel in the tractor yesterday. We don't have any here on hand, so I need to run to the gas station and get some diesel, fill it up, and then get going here. Well, all of that took a couple of hours to mark all of the riser heads and fill this up and get things going. But now I am ready to go, so let's get to it.
Now, I know there tends to be somewhat of a stereotype for those people who don't really understand farming on a larger scale, and that stereotype sort of looks like this. Now, I know these are lawnmowers, but sometimes that stereotype includes driving a tractor. But let me tell you, driving a tractor is not relaxing, and there's no way I could be enjoying a beer while doing it. The smallest mistake can cause major issues for any type of infrastructure that we have out here. So I'm not really sitting, I'm standing for hours trying to be on the lookout for any hazard that I can possibly see. It is exhausting.
All right, well, it is close to 2 o'clock and I just realized I haven't eaten breakfast yet. So I'm gonna call it quits for this project for the day, but between yesterday morning and today, I got most of the pasture complete. You see some spots there where those risers are, where it's a little bit more green. And I'm gonna leave the rest for tomorrow morning. So I probably have maybe 2 acres left to go. So yeah, that'll be tomorrow's project, but it feels good. I'm sad to see it because now it looks brown and just like a barren field. But yeah, we had to do it. Fire safety is important. Since we're not irrigating the entire pasture, we have to do this. But anyway, I'm heading inside and gonna take it a little easier for the next couple of hours.
Did you lock yourself in?
Mm-hmm.
Well, day 3.
And part of the fun is getting these matted masses of grasses out of the back of the tractor.
Well, I got most of the pasture done. The rest I will leave to Ruben. So the part that I did not really get to is a lot back in here because as you see, we have a lot of these big rocks back in here when we were doing the trenching for the power line from the solar panels there. That is a table.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to do this manually with the weed eater, but this was a long 3 days, but it feels good. We're in good shape now. I have to clean up around all of the risers. As you can see, there's tufts of grass. I didn't want to get too close with the tractor. I'd rather just do that manually, but yay, this is done.
It was time to return the tractor to our neighbors because we had it for quite a few days. So when Ruben got home, he hopped on the tractor and was able to slowly go through the areas I was a bit too hesitant to get to because the corners were a bit too tight for my comfort. But before returning it to our neighbors, Ruben gave it a good once-over to make sure it was mechanically sound. We cleaned it up and topped it off with fuel because when you borrow anything like a car or your neighbor's heavy equipment, you ideally should return it in a little bit better condition than when you borrowed it, right? Now back to garden bed number 2.
Now we have garden bed number 2 framed up. We need to flip it over and add a little bit more structure before we take it over to the garden bed area. Then we'll be able to put on the sides. But before we get to do that, we need to level out what is currently the garden bed area because it's still a little bit rough.
Now it's extremely important to get the proper placement of this garden bed now prior to it being filled with earth, because once it's full, it's so heavy that the only way we'll be able to move it is with heavy equipment.
Okay, got it.
And then the 10 and the 9 are going to the other side.
Copy that.
It's above the 4x4?
Yep. Up. Up, up, up. One more. More. Is that all you got?
No, I can do more. But then there's a big gap
It's like, okay, never mind. I put it to the edge.
right there.
There. Let's see. A little bit up. It's too high.
That's a nice big piece. That's a huge piece.
Yeah. It's 11 and a half.
I think it's 18 and a half.
Is it 18 and a half on the other side?
18 and a quarter.
Wow. Alright, this is. Oh,
Can we lower this one since it's so big?
yep. 4 1/8. Raise it up. Right there.
So to prevent me from engaging in an unwanted slip and slide muddy situation after I water here, we're adding some gravel to the pathways. So not only will it help me to not slip, but it's going to look nice.
standing here in the corner. See how easy it is to lift it? Basically what you're going to be doing is just going to be guiding it into this wonderful little trail that I built.
Okay. Copy that.
Now, unfortunately, the battery died and I was not able to get any footage of me filling up the garden bed, but I approached it with the same basic hugelkultur method of putting in a lot of tree branches and carbon and nitrogen, and now we're filling it in with some local dirt. Then I'll be filling it in with some compost and then topsoil before I put everything in the garden bed to plant them. Now in this section right here, we do plan to plant some corn and some squash and maybe even some watermelons. And these can go directly into the ground, but I need Ruben to break up this earth because as you can see, he's even having a little bit of a tough time with this giant machine. I can't imagine me trying to do this by hand with a shovel and a pickaxe. So after getting a lot of the visible giant rocks out of the way, he's just going to level it off one last time. That way it's a little bit less manual labor for me to do when I start planting these crops this coming week. Well, family, that wraps up the update for this week's episode. I can't believe we're already in June. This is crazy. But we thank you for watching, and we're so happy that you are interested in following along on our crazy adventure. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday.